Like a good agent, Brooks is there. Hey Crumpets, it's our 93rd episode of Tea Time, and this week we have Brooks Sherman on, who is a literary agent, and he's going to teach us all how to get agents and get published and become multi-famous people. But first, let's talk about our new releases. We've got 6 of them right here on my horribly organized bookshelf. I know all of you like OCD book nerds out there are probably like, oh, none of it's organized. I know. I'm really disorganized. Deal with it. First up, we have The Memory Key by Leanna Liu. This one is about a world where there's a viral form of Alzheimer's, and so everybody has to put all of their memories, download them onto a chip that then goes into their brain, and basically this one girl, her memory chip just sort of like malfunctions, and all of a sudden she's like total recall, and then she freaks out. I mean, it's just like, what would you even do if like all of a sudden you can remember every single detail of your life? I mean, like every single moment of your life. Like, what did you wear 900 days ago? Wouldn't that be insane if you could recall that? Well, this book explores that. So that's out this week. We also have Sorceress by Claudia Gray, which is the 3rd book in the Spellcaster. I know I have it somewhere. In the Spellcaster series, witches, magic, awesomeness. 3 books in this series. This is the last one, and it is finally here. Next up, we have How to Win at High School by Owen Matthews. This one is a weird one, you guys, because it's a contemporary, from a boy's point of view, about basically he's kind of this loser and he wants to become one of the popular kids, so he uses Scarface as his model of how to become popular, which, hey, I mean, if it works for him, you know, maybe it'll work for us. But the cool thing about this is that the chapters are written in these like super short, there's just, I don't even know what to call them, but he's got style. This whole book has like a very specific style to it, which I really, really loved, and honestly it was kind of refreshing to read. So, How to Win at High School by Owen Matthews, on sale now. Bone Cat. It's about bees. Giant bees taking over the world. With their giant stingers, drowning us all in honey. Just kidding. It's about a girl who gets kidnapped and the boy who witnesses her kidnapping, but he can't identify her kidnapper, and so basically it's this magical realism literary novel about, you know, him dealing with the fact that he can't help find this girl, even though he's the only one that witnessed her kidnapping. So think about that. Oh yeah, and there are bees. There are bees. I mean, there's a bee on the cover, so yeah, there are bees. Death Marked is the sequel to Death Sworn by Leah Sipis. High fantasy fans, holla! This one is an amazing series about a girl that's basically the most badass of all badasses who like has to train future badasses in like magic and fighting and being awesome. And honestly, like if you really just enjoy high fantasy, medieval high fantasy, this one's your jam. And then finally, a little paperback this week. The Dorothy Must Die stories. So there's a bunch of different stories. We have, I know it's written in here, No Place Like Oz, The Witch Must Burn, and The Wizard Returns. Those are all previously and also available as ebooks, but now they're being put together in this paperback. So that is on sale this week, just in time before The Wicked Will Rise goes on sale at the end of this month. So yeah. On to part 2 of Tea Time. Hi everybody, I'm here with Brooks Sherman, who is a literary agent at the Bent Agency, and he represents some children's, middle grade, and YA authors, including Becky Albertalli, who wrote Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which is one of my favorite books of 2015. And he's here today to tell us all about how to get an agent, and what's a query letter, and what do agents look for, and all of these agency questions that I have and you have. So let's just get started. What is the first step in getting an agent? So let's say I wrote a book about unicorns in space, and
that'll be the next big trend.
It's totally the next big thing. Like, it merges so many different genres.
Sexy unicorns in space.
Sexy unicorns in space. maybe some Pegasi crossover.
Whoa, that's...
I know it's groundbreaking, but
no, that's genre mixing there.
I know.
All right, on to the question.
So I wrote this manuscript. What's my first step? How do I find an agent? What do I do?
Okay, your first step, I'm afraid to report, is going to be homework. It's a lot of research if you want to do it, thoroughly, want to make certain you have all your ducks in a row. Really, you just go to the internet and start. You can do a general search of how do I find an agent, or, I would say probably the cheat code here is to start checking out your favorite books. And most books that are published these days will have an acknowledgement section where the author, thanks everyone who's involved in the publication process. And sometimes, if they like their agent, they might actually name their agent and give them a small thank you.
So my second question has to do with query letters. What are they? And a question from Violet Mooney on YouTube. What are some necessities agents like to see in query letters?
Okay, as I'm sure many of you know, query letters are the devil. I completely sympathize with writers who have written an entire novel and then are like, why do I have to focus on this one-page sheet from hell?
So, like, my manuscript on Unicorns in Space doesn't really matter. It's that one sheet.
Oh, no, the manuscript matters.
Okay, cool.
But the query letter is sort of your introduction. It's a cover letter.
Oh, all right. I've written a lot of those.
When you're applying for a job, you can't just send out your resume. You need a cover letter which sort of explains like why you want the job, why you're the perfect person for it, and the query letter serves a very similar purpose. Now, I'd say there's no one format, but there does seem to be a pretty standard format for query letters. Generally speaking, I'd say 3 to 4 paragraphs. You definitely want to keep it under a page. I'd say really, if you're keeping it really tight, no more than 2/3 of a page tops.
Are you guys taking notes on this? I hope you
I mean,
are.
these are not like, this is not gospel.
General. Do your research.
These are guidelines.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some very important parts that you look for in a query letter? What do you like to see?
Okay. For me, the most effective query letters focus on plot and character rather than on themes or message.
Okay.
When I'm talking to you later, like say I'm really interested in your work and I give you a call, that's when I might ask you questions of what inspired you to write this story, or why is this important to you? If you have a BA in creative writing, or you've gotten an MFA, or you've gotten some short stories published in some publication somewhere, that's all relevant. You might mention that you're part of a writer's workshop, or you're a member of SCBWI. That's all useful information to include.
So like things that sort of prove that you can write.
Yeah, and also show that you've already been making efforts to establish yourself professionally, and you've been doing research and learning about the marketplace and about the publishing industry in general.
Oh, that's really cool. All right, note to self, join all these things, take a class in writing. So now we have a question from Violet Mooney who asks, what is rejection material for agents? What are some immediate turnoffs?
Immediate turnoff is pitching me a story where you obviously don't really know the genre or category you're writing in, or you obviously have no respect for it. Sort of like the cash grab query of, hey, everyone knows vampires are hot right now. Have I got something for you?
Ah, yes. Yes.
Obviously, I want to make money. I want to make my clients money, but making money is not really how we start this conversation. First, we talk about whether you have a good story. So go with the material first. You don't need to preach to me about the marketplace because any good agent knows the marketplace.
Right.
I would say another turnoff is when you obviously don't really want an agent. You're just kind of viewing us as another hurdle in the process to getting published. And what I mean by this is, somebody who thinks that the agent's job is solely to, pitch your book to publishers and get you a deal. And then that's it. So, all right, I don't really want to work with you, but I know I need you if I'm going to talk to any publisher. So here.
Right.
Jerk.
Our next question comes from Book Vibes, who asks, what happens if you don't get a literary agent? Does the world cease to exist? Just kidding. No, I've added that last part on there.
Well, yes and yes.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
If you don't get a literary agent, I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but there are a lot of options for how to get your book out there. You can go to a smaller publisher that's more open to working with authors who don't have representation. You can self-publish, and even in self-publishing now, there are lots of different options how you can do that. You can go just and upload your manuscript onto Amazon and Barnes & Noble and take it from there. Or you could crowdfund your project and ask, people to invest and help you put together a really strong production for your book. So no, it is not the end of the world. And a lot of agents might get mad at me for saying this, but you don't need an agent. We do have perks. There are benefits to having an agent, but you also need to figure out for yourself, what sort of an author experience do you want to have? Are you very entrepreneurial? Do you want to go it alone and retain all the creative control, or do you want more of a team atmosphere? And if it's the latter, that's where an author and having a traditional publisher comes more useful.
But it's advised to have an agent. You don't need one, but
yeah.
There's a lot of services that you provide
I'm just saying
besides just getting
it's not
published.
all or nothing. I definitely think there are a lot of benefits to having an agent. I'm just saying that if you really, really don't want one, you don't have to have one.
So what if I wrote my manuscript on unicorns, I've written my query letter, I've did all my research, and I've sent it out to let's say 5 or 6 different agents, and they all have rejected me.
Oh, you should send them more.
Send them more. How many, on average, you may not know this answer, but on average, how many query letters do authors send out? How long could it take? Could it take forever? How long before I think, okay, maybe I should go back and not try to publish my unicorns in space story?
I would say, you should send to at least a dozen or so agents.
Okay.
I'd say once you've sent to several dozen agents and they've all turned you down, that's where you might want to take a moment to reflect on what's not working. It might not even be the manuscript. It might be something about your query letter. There are lots of factors.
Okay.
However, you should query widely. It's in your best interest. And yes, it can take a long time. It can take weeks. It can take months. I have signed a client and gotten her a book deal. That's Becky Albertalli, actually. She queried me, I signed her 2 weeks later and sold her book a week after that.
Oh my God.
And that never happens.
Because it's so good, you guys. It's so good.
I've also signed clients and then worked with them for over a year before we were able to get an offer from a publisher.
Just depends on
I know
timing.
one agent whom I respect greatly who worked with her client for several years before they got an offer from a publisher. And that's just how much she loved this book and believed in the author. She did not want to give up.
Wow.
So there's a wide range. And that's a good question that you can ask agents too. I wouldn't put that in your query letter, but if an agent does approach you and is interested in working with you, that's where you can ask them some questions about what their process is working with them. What they're inclined to do if, say, something doesn't work the first time.
So Alexa Charbonneau has a question. How do you get published and get an agent from a different country?
Right. That's a very good question, and unfortunately there is no one answer. Some agents have a strict policy.
Gonna kill you with all these non-answers you've got going on.
Like I said, there's no one...
Just give me a yes or no, all right?
All right, yes, moving on.
All right, thank you.
Some agents will only work with authors that are writing in the same country as them, and that's just simply because say you do get a book deal, it's easier for the author to promote their work if they're in the same country as where their book is sold. I, however, do have clients who live in England. There is a writer whose picture book I sold, who the illustrator lives in Australia. So, it really does depend agent to agent. There are valid reasons why agents might be closed to certain areas. The one exception for me is I really need to work with authors who are writing in English. I speak a little French. I speak a couple of West African dialects, and I can swear in German and Italian. But I really don't do translation work. My agency does not have a translator on retainer. So if you query me, your query and your manuscript need to be in English, just so I can pitch it effectively.
That's all helpful information. I'm sorry, West African dialects?
Yeah.
Wait, seriously?
Industry standard. No, before I got into publishing, I was in the Peace Corps, and I was in Burkina Faso, West Africa.
That's so cool!
Thanks.
Now I just want to know all about, how'd you even become a literary agent?
standard procedure. You go spend
Peace
2
Corps?
years in sub-Saharan West Africa, come back, and join a literary agency.
Okay,
It's a tired story.
That's pretty cool. All right. Classic tale of woe. So Mia Alberti, I'm so sorry if I totally just ruined your name, but she asks, what are the 3 most crucial characteristics that you look for in new projects, and what makes that special someone stand out? So let's start with the crucial characteristics first.
Now for me, when we're talking about just the query stage, and I'm looking at that, that 1 page that is your cover letter, and then I'm going to say the first several pages of your manuscript, what I'm looking for, aside from, really sharp, succinct format, is I'm looking for a really strong narrative voice. I'm looking for an engaging, dynamic story that balances plot and character arcs. I want both together, not one or the other. And I'd like to get a sense that you're willing to continue working on that manuscript. Even when I find something that I fall in love with, I'm probably going to have some ideas of, this is awesome. This is how you could tweak it slightly to make it even more awesome. And, part of my favorite part of being an agent is this great blend of the creative and professional. I'm an agent because I love working with my clients on their manuscripts, getting hands-on, and making that awesome story that much more awesome before we bring it to publishers.
I've heard authors say that your editor or your agent is actually your first editor, really.
I'd agree with that. Most of the agents that I know, and certainly all the ones that I respect, are very hands-on editorial agents. Your manuscript has to be that close to perfect before you can even get a book deal these days. That's how competitive the marketplace is. So you want an agent who's going to push you and challenge you to make it, make your story the strongest version of itself.
Be.
Exactly that.
It's basically that. So what makes that special someone stand out? And so, how did Becky Albertalli stand out to you? What about her query
Well, funnily enough, and I'll try not to embarrass Becky because I don't want to get fired.
Do it! Just kidding.
I met Becky at a writers' conference. And she had been a great querying author. She had researched agents. She knew who I was. She knew what I was looking for. She'd read various interviews where I talked about the kind of stuff that I liked. And she approached me specifically because she thought her story might appeal to me. But like many authors at that stage, she was really nervous. And when she tried to pitch me, she bombed. She literally lost the ability to speak. She got so nervous. And, we had to go and sit down somewhere, and I had to calm her down because she was so flustered, and then she got even more flustered at the idea that she'd blown it. So when Becky had calmed down and we talked a little, and then she pitched me again. She told me about her story. I was like, all right, sure, that sounds interesting, but I don't know. Go ahead and send me a query. I'm not really one for in-person pitches. I want to see what your actual writing is. And I think Becky is a great example of somebody who didn't necessarily have the strongest pitch, but when her query came in, and I read the query, and I read the opening pages, there was just something about the narrative voice in Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda that immediately grabbed me. I started reading her manuscripts at 11 o'clock the night that she sent it, just because, out of curiosity, all right, let's see what this is. And I put it down at 2 a.m. being all right, I really need to get some sleep so I can go in the office tomorrow, but I need to get back to this. There is something here.
That's cool. That's good to know. Oh, Becky. She's just like Simon. So if you guys have any more questions for Brooks, the literary agent du jour, then how can they reach out to you? Are you on social? Are you on Twitter?
Oh yeah, I'm on social. I'm a big fan of Twitter, actually, and my Twitter handle alone should give away the fact that I love horrible puns. It's BYO Brooks.
Ha ha ha. Don't leave me hanging. There you go. All right, so we will see you guys on the next tea time. Until then.